This is my daughter's 2017 Hyundai Elantra SE. It's got 160,000 miles on it, and so we're getting ready to do change the automatic transmission fluid, change the oil and oil filter, and rotate the tires. And so we did this when we first bought the car. That video is on the channel. It's been 30,000 miles already since then, so we're getting ready to do that. I've got an eye patch on. Just bear with me as I recover from some eye complications. So let me just show you. I'm going to put everything in the video description, but I've got, most of the tools laid out here. What we're going to need for the oil change, we're going to be putting in Valvoline Restore and Protect for the first time, and a Purolator BOSS oil filter for the first time. I'm going to be changing out the automatic transmission fluid. For this vehicle we use the Valvoline Max Life multi-vehicle full synthetic. That's compatible for these for this Hyundai transmission. And then what we need for our tire rotation. So what we're going to do while the vehicle's on the ground, we're going to loosen the lug nuts while the wheels are on the ground. We're going to loosen our oil cap, and we're going to get our fill bolt for our automatic transmission fluid removed while it's on the ground, and then we'll jack it up. So let's get started. Okay, so this is our air box where our air filter resides, and our automatic transmission fill bolt is way down there. So we're going to have to remove this box, and due to where some of the bolts are located, we're also going to remove this plastic piece holding on this hose. So we're going to remove these two push pins right here, and then this air box is held in by some 10mm sockets, and then we're going to disconnect the air box from the air intake right here with a Phillips screwdriver right there. So we're going to start by this fastener style here. You want to push in on the pin in the middle first, like push down, and then once you push down, then this clip comes up. But we want to make sure that we don't lose our push pin, so we kind of got to be careful in how we handle that. So I'm going to go make sure, see if I got something I can push down in the middle. Very small screwdriver. So what I'm doing is I'm pushing down. Whoops. So what happens is those push pins, they fall. And then I'm going to see if I can find it. So that's not a big fan of these. Yeah, so see, I have to push it out. So basically the push pin disappears on me. And then I'm left with this part of the clip. So then this comes off. I don't know. I'm gonna have to try to find those pins. So this slides off, and then this end just comes right out of here. So I'm gonna set this aside. So yeah, those push pins just fall, which I don't like at all. So I'm gonna have to see if I can find those. So what that does is it opens up this area where I can access this 10mm bolt here. There's a 10mm bolt right here, and there's another one right there. So we're gonna get those off and use the Phillips head on this just to loosen that screw right there. We're not going to change the air filter this time because it was changed at our last oil change 5,000 miles ago. Okay, so we got those loosened. I'm gonna loosen this while I'm right here. Don't want to remove this, just want to loosen it up. Okay, so now we've got this air box loosened and we've got this loosened, so it should be able to just pull up on this air box and it pulls it off of here, and then this should just pull out of there like that. So here's my air box right here, so I'm going to set it aside. So this is our transmission fill bolt right here. And so we went to see, this just sits in there. This thing blows me away that it just barely turns and sits in there. So anyway, we're able to just grab that out of there, and that's going to be where we put in our transmission fluid. In the previous video I made, I had trouble getting it out, and I put a notch in the plastic right there with a Dremel tool so that I could clear this metal piece. And this metal piece will move if you move the shifter, so you can move the shifter to neutral and it'll move this, and it can help you get that, but I was able to get it without doing that this time. So I'm going to set these parts aside, and then remember, I've got those two push pins that I lost that I'm going to be looking for. But what I've got now, due to taking the air box out, is I have, you know, a hole right here, a hole right there, and I don't want to drop anything down there. I got a hole here, so I'm going to grab some rags and just kind of set in those places to prevent me from dropping anything down there. So just gonna kind of put them in there where it lets me know I'm gonna have to remove these and keep me from dropping stuff in there. So this one's pretty big. I don't want to drop my rag down in there either, so I'm just gonna kind of cover it like that. I'm just gonna cover that area as well. I don't want any of this dirt from the engine falling in there, so I'm going to use that bright green rag just to cover that. So this area is ready to go. That's going to be easy to add our transmission fluid when we get to that point. So the other things that I'm going to do while I'm right here is just loosen my oil cap while it's on the ground before I jack it up, just so I can get to that easily. I'm just going to loosen the dipstick for when I want to drain my oil, I can get some oil flow. And then I'm going to get my wrench out and loosen up my lug nuts. So on this car, this little bitty car, takes 21mm socket for these lug nuts. So I'm just going to go around and loosen all of them while it's on the ground. The reason for that is the weight of the vehicle is keeping the tire from spinning. If you jacked it up first and these are torqued down and you're trying to loosen them, the wheel is just going to turn on you. So it's always good to remember to loosen those up when it's on the ground. All you got to do is get a couple turns. So I'm not going to record all this. I'm just going to go around and do, there's 5 per wheel, so we got 20 of these. So we'll be back with you in a second. Alright, so the last time we did this, around 130,000 miles, we changed the coolant. We did a drain and fill. And so I want to test it every 30,000 miles every time I do the automatic transmission fluid. Got to be careful. I'd like to test it from here, but it's too far down. So this is not pressurized, the overflow tank. That's the safest place, but it's, yeah, I don't think I can get any out of there. This is pressurized, so got to be careful you don't do this when the engine's too hot. So always keep a rag over it and be ready if it starts to bubble out that you keep your hand over it with the cap. So I want to let pressure out of this as slow as possible. Okay, so I got the cap off. So now I want to squeeze in this bubble right here, put this down in there, and then let go of the bubble. See if I can get some up in there. So yeah, see the pointer is up here, it's at the max. So it is good. It is good coolant. I do want to check my level. I wish these overflows were easier to read. Alright, so the jack points on this vehicle are kind of non-existent. So almost every vehicle will have points inside of the tires, like right around here and right around here, where you can set a jack stand. However, that's not a jack point. A jack point is supposed to be a safe place in the design of the vehicle where you can use a floor jack to jack up the vehicle high enough to place a jack stand in these locations. On this car, I can't find nothing in the owner's manual or anything. So what I do is I jack the car up. You put my floor jack on these locations that are meant for the jack stands, jack up the vehicle, and then place the jack stand as close to that point as I can get, so that I have dual methods holding up the car. So I don't want to trust my life to just a floor jack or just a jack stand. So for this particular vehicle, I already had two big floor jacks that I used for the front because the front weighs more, and then I bought two smaller floor jacks just for the purpose of jacking up this vehicle safely. So I'm going to show you how we do it. I'm going to show you what these jack points look like the best I can, so that you can identify them on your vehicle. So right here is the back tire, and then under here you have what's called a pinch weld. Okay, and you're gonna see this dimpled area where this is meant to put your jack stand right here in this location. So this whole thing along here is a pinch weld, this whole thing right here, but they usually have these notches, and you're supposed to be able to put your floor jack like in between two notches or something like that. So right around this location. And they can get damaged from putting the weight of the vehicle on there. So not the most durable of designs, unfortunately. So then in the front, the two notches show up more defined. So now we're behind the front tire, and you're gonna see your two notches. So we would want our jack stand right there. But since we don't have a jack point, we're going to put our floor jack right there, and we're going to jack it up, and then we're going to put our jack stand somewhere close on this pinch weld, close as we can, and we're going to leave them both there. So as ridiculous as it may sound, for this vehicle I'm going to be using 4 floor jacks and 4 jack stands, and that's just the only way I've felt safe working under this vehicle. So that's what we're gonna do right now. And okay, so again, got my floor jacks in place. This one's on the jack point there. Got my jack stand ready. So what I do is I use the same jack stands every time. These are a Touring 2-ton, and I write down, I take notes how many teeth I need showing. That lets me know how high I need to jack that up. So I have in my notes, I need 4 teeth on the front jack stand, and I need 2 teeth on the back jack stand. I've got my emergency brake set. I'm going to jack the front up first, so I'm going to take these wheel chocks and I'm going to set them into the back tires. And then when we're jacking up the front, keeps the car from rolling backwards. So I just set those behind the tires. You'll see on this side, same setup. I've got my 3-ton jacks in the front. I got my 1.5-ton jacks in the back. I normally would not recommend buying a floor jack this small. Like I say, the only reason I did it was just to hold up this particular vehicle. I like the 3-ton floor jacks. So I've already got these in place. So what we're going to do off camera is my wife will be operating one of these floor jacks and I'll be operating the other, and we'll kind of go up, one of us on either side, jacking up this front until we can get these jack stands in place. Then we'll move to the back and we'll do the same thing until we have the whole car off the ground. So we're going to do that right now. Alright, so right now we have all the weight of the car on the 4 floor jacks, and the jack stands are pushed under where they need to be right under the pinch weld. So now what we do is we just have to gently rotate the handles counterclockwise to let the floor jacks down a little until the pinch weld is resting in the cradle on the jack stand, and then we'll tighten the handle up. And when we do that on all 4 of them, the weight of the vehicle is actually being supported by all 8 of these items. So that's what we're going to do now, and then we'll consider our car to be safely at the jack points. Okay, so we took some time and just carefully lowered the floor jacks by turning these counterclockwise. Got all the jack stands where they're touching the pinch weld, and then these floor jacks we tighten back up so that they're also touching the pinch weld. So at each pinch weld location we've got both a floor jack and a jack stand. So now if we were not changing the automatic transmission fluid, we would not need to take off the skid plate on the front, but because Hyundai did not put an access door to the drain plug for the automatic transmission, we have to remove 12 plastic clips and 6 10mm bolts to remove a skid plate when they could have just put an access panel. So we're going to go under here and do that. So we have a 10mm socket, got a 3/8 inch ratchet with a 3-inch extension, and I have this clip removal tool. Everything will be linked in the video description, so you'll see what parts you need and all that good stuff. Everything that I use I'll put in there, and if I forget something, ask me in the comments. I try to make it easy for you to duplicate this job. All right. Since you're not going to be able to see all these from underneath, I'm going to show them to you after the skid plate is removed. I have it sitting out where I can show you everything. Okay, I think there's like 6 10mm bolts and 12 clips for holding this thing on, all because Hyundai did not put an access panel for the automatic transmission fluid drain bolt like they did for the oil filter. So this is the orientation of how it comes off. So when you see these are the 10mm bolts. Those are indented coming up from underneath. There's 4 there. There's a couple back here on this back side. And then all these holes are those plastic clips. So what I want to point out, these plastic clips, if you're not used to working with them, well, even if you are used to it, they're frustrating because they're so cheaply made. And there's got to be better ways of doing it. I would rather see them just use the 10mm bolts everywhere. So when you look at it, this is pushed in. And if you take your pry bar and put it under that and pry it off, you're breaking the clip. So the only way to get them off, you know, this is pushed in where it's right next to that. So you're sitting there trying to get your tool in between that and pop it up like that. Then once it pops up, this loosens and you can just pull it out by hand. Problem is, if you can't get your separation there, your only option is to put your pry tool behind that and break it on purpose. And then so fortunately for me, the last time I did this, I had so many missing and broken from the previous owner that I was able to find on Amazon the replacement clips. So a lot of those had only been on there for 2.5 years, and some of them were ruined. So this is what a new clip looks like. So I'll be replacing most of these with new clips when I put it on, probably all of them actually, and just put new clips on it when I put it back together. It's probably worth it every time you do that, just to put some new clips. They're cheap on Amazon, so I'll put links in the video description. Okay, now that we have our skid plate out of the way, we're going to drain our automatic transmission fluid. So that's going to take a 24mm socket. Once I get that off, I'll drain it into my catch pan. I have a 18mm crush washer ready to replace the old crush washer. So I can put that back, and once I drain it and let the fluid pour out, I'll make sure the old crush washer has been removed. Then when it's done draining, we'll put the new crush washer on and we'll torque it back down to 30 foot-pounds. Again, this is an 18mm crush washer. Crush washers do have a difference. There's a machined side that's really flat, and that's supposed to go up against the mating surface, and then you tighten it down with the bolt on the other side. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. They usually work either way, but that is the proper way. Good to have a couple rags with you. Also, I have my ratchet just to help. Once I get it loose, I might use that to get my hand out of the way to get the bolt off when the fluid pours out, and I'll have this. Now, some people like to measure the fluid that comes out, and they put the same amount back in. The reason I don't like that method is you're assuming that the previous person did it right, and then you're copying what they did. So I've done enough research on this where I know that this takes 4 quarts. So I'm going to put in 4 quarts. The last time I did it, I did measure it just because. And I measured 3.7 quarts last time that I got out. I put 4 quarts in because of all the research I did. I'm comfortable with that. So this time I'm not going to measure anymore. Just going to take it out, put it in my container, and I'm going to put in 4 quarts. So I'm confident with that from my research. You can do it however you would like. That's what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to get under here now with my tools and my catch pan, and I'll show you where we're at in just a second. Let me find out where okay, it's right there. So let me go ahead and show you that now, or can you tell me if you can see it. So coming up the front of the car, you're gonna see this black plastic, and this big metal part here is your transmission. Okay, this 24mm bolt is your transmission drain bolt. So we're gonna loosen that, and fluid's gonna pour out the bottom. Okay, for reference, if you can pan over this way, this is your oil filter. Okay, so that's good to kind of give you a reference. Oil filter, and then this is your transmission drain bolt right here. Okay, so let's take that off with our 24mm socket. I'm going to put my container under there. Breaks free very easily. I remember that last time I did this job, I was amazed at how easy the 30 foot-pound broke free. So now the only reason I'm using this is to keep my hands out of the way. That's the only reason. So you don't have to use that. I just choose to do it that way because I have it, and that's a use I have found to be very helpful for me to stay a little cleaner doing these jobs. Let's look at our drain bolt. So most transmission drain bolts have a built-in magnet. So let's look at our magnet. So the purpose of that is to catch metal shavings. Okay, so this is our drain bolt. And it is very clean, I think, compared to last time. But see that look? That's a metallic look. These are metal shavings. This is 30,000 miles of transmission wear though. So that's not much, and it's a lot less than the last time. So the last time we did it, we didn't know if it had ever been done or how long. And we had a lot more metal than that. So for 30,000 miles of wear, you know, this fluid basically took this car from 130,000 miles to 160,000 miles. So there's not a lot of wear left, hopefully. You know, you're actually going to see less and less the older the car is, because it does most of its braking in, you know, in the first 30,000 miles or the first 60,000 miles, and then every time you do this, hopefully you notice less and less. So anyway, we clean that magnet off real nice because we want it to be fresh to do its job, to keep grabbing more and more metal. So you definitely want to take the small amount of time it takes to do that. So what I don't see here is my old crush washer, but while I have it, I'm going to get my new crush washer, and I have my machine side up, so I'm going to put it up like that. So I'm going to go ahead and have it ready to go. Okay, so my wife, obviously she has two eyes, I got one right now. She could see this, that the old crush washer is sitting right there in our pan. Right here. So we did confirm that the old one is out, so we'll throw that away. So now I'll take this rag and I'll wipe the drips, and then I'll start putting this in by hand. So I'll kind of move my pan back a little, and I'll just kind of clean right around the area a little bit, but it's gonna just keep barely dripping, so really just need to start it in there. Alright, so let's do it by hand till the bolt contacts the base. That's gonna be enough to stop the drip. I can kind of clean around it a little bit. So got a clean work area. I've already got my torque wrench set to 30 foot-pounds. That's it. So it really just doesn't take much. So anyway, we got that on there. So we're done under here. Alright, so now that we have our transmission drain bolt torqued, we're going to come back up here. This is a very nice steel flexible transmission funnel with a very small spout, so it's good at reaching down in if you didn't have a lot of clearance like we do, since we removed the air box. So remember, this was where our fill bolt is right here, so I'm going to put this right in there. These transmission fill bolts are usually kind of small. And you can see I can't put that in there very far, so when I fill this, I'm going to have to go kind of slow. So I'm going to put that there like that. I'm definitely going to have to hold this handle when I do that. And these are very inexpensive also. I'm going to put links to everything. Like I said, I've done research on this. I'm comfortable with 4 quarts. So I buy this Valvoline Max Life Full Synthetic. Very commonly used in these Elantras. On the back it shows the compatibilities and does list the Elantra or the Hyundai fluid that is recommended. So I'm just going to pour this in slowly, and I want to keep an eye down there as I'm pouring that I'm not leaking out. So I got one eye down, you know, I'm looking back and forth making sure that I'm pouring slowly. Take your time, avoid a mess. Because yeah, there's not a lot of clearance between where that funnel is going in and when it starts to hit stuff. So it definitely would not be able to handle heavy pour. And you know, a full gallon of transmission fluid weighs about 8 pounds, so you know, you gotta keep in mind you're gonna have to support that weight while you're pouring slowly. So you might need someone to hold your funnel while you have 2 hands on the gallon if you feel you need that for control. So when you do a transmission fluid change, you know, you're draining 4 quarts, but there's more in there. I can't remember what the full capacity, usually the owner's manual will tell you. But for example, let's just make up a number. Let's say that there's 7 quarts and you're draining 4. Well then, you know, the manufacturer knows that when they tell you to change it like every so often. I do mine every 30,000 miles. So we did it 30,000 miles ago. So now when we do it 30,000 miles later, you know, we're changing 4 more of those quarts out. So you don't have to worry about the old stuff that's still in there. If you just follow a 30,000 mile change interval, you're going to be in good shape on your transmission fluid. So I wanted to use my dirty transmission fluid rag that I got to get rid of anyway. I can tell with my headlight that I'm still dripping, but not much. So I'm going to kind of start to bend this funnel to grab the end so I don't drip. And then I'm just going to kind of set it aside. Okay, so now I'm going to grab my bolt. So I got my air box, I got my other piece, and I got my drain bolt. So this drain bolt just kind of finagles down in there. Okay. It's a very strange bolt. It barely rotates. Definitely doesn't give you that satisfying click or tightening. But when you rotate it, it is locked in. Like, you know, it's not moving. So it's very odd design. but our drain bolt is in there. Okay, so there's that. Now we took all these, we put all these rags in here to keep us from dropping anything in here, but now we're ready to put our air box back. So we're gonna take all these off. Okay. And so anyway, let's put our air box back in first. So again, the three 10 millimeters are here, here, and here. So they're gonna line up, you know, this one goes there, this one goes there, so you just kind of start lining stuff up. Obviously our hoses have to go in, so the first thing I want to do is push this back in there, back into this hose. Okay, then I'll line up that bolt, and then I'll connect this hose down here, line up that bolt, line up that bolt. So I want to make sure that my hoses are in there good. Okay, line that one up. I really just want to kind of get them started. Don't want to bear down on any of them. Okay, I'm going to loosen that one up just barely because it's a little tighter than I wanted. Okay. Okay. Then we had our, remember we had this hose clamp, so just want to make sure air box is snug up against there. Tighten that clamp back down. I'll put that on relatively tight because I don't want any air leaks. Again, just make sure the hoses are in there good. Next, we've got this piece where we lost our clips. So, we're going to get this back on that hose down there first. Kind of push that in there. Those line up. Okay. Good news is that does stay there fairly easily. So if you had to drive it like that to an auto parts store or something with it on there, I think you would probably be okay, but we're going to try to figure something out. So I'm going to go grab some of my clips I found and see if any of them fit. Okay, so instead of going with the two-piece push pin style where you push the pin out and lose it forever, which is really, I don't understand that design, I found one that looks like this. It's just a one piece, same size hole. This was in just one of those assortment packs. Goes in, thing's not going anywhere. So Anyway, next time I have to take that off, I'll be able to just pry it off in one piece and it's not going to fall apart because it's a one piece clip. So that worked for me. So I don't know what to tell you about what the proper replacement is from Hyundai on that. But this was just in a clip assortment that I have. If I can get some more information on that, I'll include it in the video description. So this concludes the automatic transmission fluid. Now I'm gonna move on to the oil. Alright, so the first thing on this car, if you've been following the channel, also I'll put like a playlist to all my videos for this car, but it does have an oil consumption issue, as many of these do. So I check the oil frequently and I keep track of the oil consumption. So the way that I do this is I keep track of oil consumption per 1,000 miles driven. So I'll be keeping track of that. Today we'll be changing oil and oil filter. We'll be going with the Valvoline Restore and Protect. I really don't look for the Valvoline Restore and Protect to fix the oil consumption issue. What it's supposed to do is restore your old engine to be like new, in the sense that it cleans, you know, the engine from the inside. So regardless of whether it helps me with oil consumption, I figure that if I change the oil every 5,000 miles, over a 20,000 mile period, and those 4 oil changes, I figure that it's going to do anything that it's going to do in that 20,000 mile period, just to help the health of the engine. And I plan on just sticking with it anyway. It's just good oil anyway for an older car. But anyway, we are going to do that. I'm going to see if it has any bearing on oil consumption, but really not using it because I think it will. So just want to point that out. So anyway, we're gonna change this oil. So I need my 17. Well, come on in here. We'll just kind of do a brief overview of the oil. So we need 4.2 quarts of 5W20. Let me just check my notes and make sure. Keep track of a lot of cars. Yep. 4.2 quarts of 5W20. We have a 17 millimeter socket to take off our oil drain bolt. We have a 14 millimeter crush washer for our oil drain bolt, and we will torque that oil drain bolt to 30 pound-feet. Also, we use a cap style wrench for this vehicle. It's an 80 millimeter. This is a Lyle. I'll put links in the video description to this Lyle cap style wrench, where you come up from underneath to grab your oil filter, so you can use that hole that's in the skid plate. Of course, today the skid plate's removed because we did the transmission fluid, but normally it wouldn't be there, and we would use a 3/8 inch ratchet with an extension, and then we put this on the end of that and reach up in there and grab it. Now, since I don't have that in the way, I'm going to use, the much smaller extension, just a 3-inch extension, and that's what I'm going to do today to grab that oil filter off. So anyway, this is what we need: oil, our oil filter. I'll put links to the part numbers for the Purolator BOSS. These are highly rated, and I'll put links to everything that I use in the video description. Okay, so I like these pictures for accurate fluid measurement. So I have this marked. It's at 4.2 quarts, so all this is going to go in to our vehicle. So I'm going to take my new oil filter. It's got this black rubber ring on there, so when we take off our old filters, we always make sure that's stuck to the filter and not to the housing on the engine block. So we dip our finger in that oil and we lube up all the edges and everything on that black seal so it won't stick. And then after that, I'm going to choose to pre-fill our oil filter. So I'm going to pour a little bit of oil in the middle. You don't have to do this, it's optional. It's the purpose for doing it is so that on your initial startup you have oil already there. You're not having like a fraction of a second with dryness in your engine, but you know, I don't believe that you're ever going to notice a difference whether you do or don't, but it just makes sense hearing the explanations of why to do it and knowing that there are no disadvantages of doing it. So it's not one of those topics I enter debates on. This is what I do. You can do it however you want. I've never seen a automotive manufacturer recommend it, so it's not something you have to really worry about. So the only problem is what you just saw there, where I put a little too much in it. So I've never done that before. That was my mistake. So I need to pour a little of this back into my thing there. So problem, crisis averted. Just pour it back in. So we're good. This one's ready to roll when we get to that point. So I'm going to keep it in the box just to keep it from tipping over. And I'm going to go over to the vehicle with everything I need to do the oil filter and the oil. So I'm going to take my oil filter. I'm going to take my oil filter wrench because I'm going to do that first. I'm also going to use this ratchet on both the oil filter and the oil itself. So I'm going to grab my 17mm regular socket, and I'm also use this 17mm magnetic socket so that when I take the drain bolt off the oil, the drain bolt sticks to this magnet and does not fall into my pan. So that's one of the things that I do. That again is optional. It's just something I do. You can choose to do that or not do it. And then my torque wrench. I have a 3/8 inch torque wrench that's set to 30 foot-pounds. And I will use that to put my new drain bolt on. So I'm going to get all my tools and my new 14mm crush washer and head over to my work area. Alright, so we're going under the car to do the oil filter. So the oil filter is right here, blue. Well, this one, the blue. So I'm gonna get my drain pan kind of situated. And get my, so on this, all I do with this wrench is just the first loosen, okay? So I get it on there squarely, and I've already got it loose, okay? So when you turn about a half turn, that's enough to do the rest by hand. Get your tools out of there while they're still clean. Get yourself a rag and get yourself your drain pan where it's underneath that. And what's going to happen is it's going to start dripping pretty quickly, and I only want to turn it a little bit and kind of get out of the way and let it kind of do its thing. Okay, so I just want to get out of the way. It's only going to drip what's at the very top there, and then it's going to, you know, it's already almost stopped. So don't try to keep rotating it. Just kind of let it get those few drips, and then, you know, just keep going. See, it's not that many turns. So while I'm looking, I just want to see that you know, that black rubber ring is on there, so we're good there. And I don't know if you can see up in there. Do I need to take the camera? You can see that? So you can see this housing. And so I just want to take my rag and wipe my machined mating surface there. It's kind of all inside there. I really get this nice and clean. Want a good seal. No leaks. Wipe the threads. And didn't spill hardly any when we spinned the filter off. It really stayed nice and clean. So what I'm going to do now is I want to take off this, trying not to ruin the video with that light, but I need some light. Try to get my glove off, the dirty glove, leave it there, grab my new filter over here, and remember I have it pre-filled, so I want to try to not spill it, so I keep it upright like this, and I go ahead and I line it up with those threads, and I just try to get it started. And then just kind of rotate it till it contacts the base, which it did right there. Now the challenge is my hands are sweaty, and remember I spilled a little bit of oil when I overfilled that filter, and then I poured it back in. So I want to try and get a reasonably good grip on this filter, and it's in the 90s here in South Louisiana, so I'm sweating really bad. But I want to rotate this just by hand, no tools, and that's it. That's on there good. So the oil filter is done. So now next, right behind this oil filter, this is my oil pan, and on the back side of this oil pan right here is a 17mm bolt. You know, I got to come in from this way, and so the oil is going to shoot out the back. So I need to position, I need to clean out this so there's nothing in there, get my filter out, and I'll position this back there and position myself to take out that bolt and drain our oil. So we're going to do a little cleanup and position ourselves for that right now. Okay, so here's our oil drain pan, and this is our 17mm bolt. So what I want to do first is just barely get it broke free. Okay, got it broke free. So now what I want to do to try to keep away from the oil that's going to spurt out, I'm going to use my Milwaukee ratchet to and my magnetic drain bolt that I mentioned earlier. And then I need to position my catch pan. This is where it takes a little bit of doing. So my plastic sheeting kind of runs out on me right there, and I risk getting oil on my driveway, so I'm gonna, or garage floor. So I'm gonna take a second, and I have another piece of plastic sheeting I'm gonna put right there before I continue. So there it goes, and then we just watch it as it starts to come this way. Make sure, I think our pan's already in good shape, but we just want to watch it to see if we have to move our pan at all, just so it won't drip on the floor. So once that initial kind of rush comes out, see, it calms down pretty quickly, and so it's going to end up, you know, dripping almost straight down here. So we've got our pan in a good spot right now, so we can trust it. We can leave it alone right now where it's at, and then we can start cleaning up our drain bolt. So what we want to confirm, as always, is that our 14mm crush washer came off with our bolt and did not stay on our oil drain pan. So you can see that crush washer right there. I might need to get a screwdriver or something to get it. Now I think I can get it. Sometimes they get lodged in there, but we got it. So there's our old one. I don't want to mix that up with my new one, so I'm going to put it aside here. So I'll grab that in a minute and clean that up. But so I'm just going to take my bolt and just clean it up. And then while I'm waiting for that to drain, I'm going to grab my 14mm crush washer and get it on there. And if I can tell which side is the machine side, I put that facing the vehicle. Okay, so I got that ready to go. Okay, so we are down to barely a drip. Okay, so I'm going to take a rag and I'm just going to kind of give a quick rub, but it's going to keep dripping, so it's kind of futile to even do that. And take my bolt, wish I could see, but I can feel it, and I'm just going to start rotating it on there by hand. Don't want to ever cross thread these, so I always do them by hand. Alright, so now that I've done it by hand, I can grab the rag, I can wipe around it. Now I can move my pan out of the way so that I have more room to function back here with my torque wrench, which again is at 30 foot-pounds. Okay. Okay, so I got that click. So I'm at 30 foot-pounds, so we're done under here for the oil. So now we got to do is put our oil in up top, because we have our oil drained, our new bolt torqued down, got our filter changed, so let's put our new oil in up there. Okay, so this is another cool little toy you don't need, but it's neat to have. This I initially bought from a Honda's, and then it happens to fit this Hyundai. So it's got threads, so when you want to put the oil in, it actually threads on. Okay, so threads on nice and easy. Okay, so now I don't have to worry about my oil spilling. So we had already measured it out, the 4.2 quarts. We already accounted for any oil that we put in that oil filter because it came out of this 4.2 quarts. So now we got to do is add it. So you can see it through that clear window there. So you don't have to worry about any spillage. Kind of nice. So again, in the video description you'll find everything from crush washers to torque specs to tools and fluids used, everything you can think of. Okay. Okay. So our oil change is done. I've done this car many times. 4.2 quarts is the right amount of oil. I already mentioned have an oil consumption issue. So if you have an older Hyundai Kia, this is a common problem. You can follow my channel. I changed the PCV valve. That costs like 10 bucks or something. Takes 10 minutes to change. Definitely advise doing that. But the main thing is check your oil. Don't let it get low. So those dipstick marks on your oil dipstick with the hashes, there's about a quart of oil in between the low point and the high point. So you have a quart to play with there. But you don't have a lot of oil in there. So 4.2 quarts of oil, if you're down a quart, that's a lot. So what you really need to do if you bought one of these used, or if you're just getting some miles on it, get in the habit of checking it every 1,000 miles and find out, am I losing oil? If you're just starting out, just check it, and then if it's low, you better start checking it, every time you put gas in your car, check it. Until you get comfortable saying, okay, I know I can go 1,000 miles and I'm only down a fourth of a quart, you're all right. But if you go 1,000 miles and you're down an entire quart, that's too often. So you really don't want to let yourself get down more than a fourth to a half quart at a time. So I would say every 1,000 miles, make sure you're checking it on a level surface also. So your driveway might look level, but if you have a garage, that's going to be level. But anyway, just keep an eye on it. So follow the channel for updates on the oil consumption. We'll be following this Valvoline Restore and Protect and see how that goes. So now that our oil change is done, I'm done underneath of the car. So now I'm going to put that skid plate back on. I don't need to bore you with that. It's the 10mm bolts and those plastic clips. And those things get so brittle over time that I'm just going to go with all new clips. They're cheap on Amazon. They're kind of expensive if you buy them at an auto parts store, but they're cheap on Amazon, and I found the ones that fit. So I'm going to share the link in the video description, so check that out. And I'm just going to go with all new clips and get that put back on. Then I'll do my tire rotation and we'll be about done. So okay, so I know you don't need to see me put this back on, but I do want to point out a helpful tip. A lot of these skid plates have what you call a kind of a positioner, and on this one it's this tab that sticks up. So when I crawl into there, the first thing I want to put in place is this tab is going to hook on to something under there, and then it's got one of my 10mm bolts is going to go there. So that's kind of the first thing I want to line up. And then, like anything like this that has multiple fasteners, don't tighten your bolts down on the first go. You're just putting the bolt in there, tighten it halfway and move on. And then once you get all your fasteners in there, the push clips, then you can go back and snug up all of your 10mm bolts. So you can use your 10mm bolts first halfway to hold the weight, to take the pressure off of your clips, and then do all your push pins, and then come back and do that again. I'm going to use all new push clips, and so I'm going to get this put back on here. Just wanted to point this out to you because that'll save you some possible mistake. Okay, so I'm so frustrated with the way they designed this, where you have to go through all this just to get to your transmission fluid bolt. So I put it on with two 10mm bolts, and I positioned it where everything was lined up. And then I did my best to take measurements on where that bolt was under this plastic, and I come up with this spot. So I used a multi-tool to cut this hole. So when I put it under there, if it lines up, I'm done. If it's not, I'll take a marker and I'll mark where I need to cut and give it a second shot. I know I'll get it on the second shot. It's hard on the first time because you can't see the bolt, so you're trying to measure off of things under there. So that's what I did. So in the future, if I had to change the transmission fluid, all I'm gonna have to do is get under and get that bolt off. It's gonna save like a half hour or so. Okay, so my first go around gave me an approximation, and then when I got it under there the second time, I was able to get it to where my bolt will be right in the middle, and I got a little bit of a larger area to work with a socket and everything. So, you know, this is in the orientation in which it's gonna go up under the car. So, you know, you've got these slots that you'll be able to identify, and you can see that my edge is lined up almost with the edge of this slot right here. And then you've got these supports running this way, and that's about where my square is, if you want to see that. And then this side will kind of lines up with this line. So you'll be able to tell by what I did. That'll get you really close on the first try if you decide you want to do that. So now I won't have to take this off anymore when I'm doing the transmission fluid. So I'm going to get this put back on there now. Okay, so we're going to do the tire rotation. This car, Hyundai, is kind of backwards of every other car I've ever rotated. So what they say on their diagram is that the back tires rotate to the front on the same side of the vehicle. So that tire ends up here. And then the front tire ends up on the back side, on the opposite side of the vehicle. So that tire ends up here. This tire ends up back there. That back tire ends up on the front on that same side. And that front tire is going to end up over here on this back one. So back one's to the front on the same side, and then the front crisscross to the back on the opposite side. So that's the rotation pattern. You need a 21mm socket. If you've never done tires before, you need a special wheel lug nut socket that are deep. So you have to buy like a special set of wheel lug nuts. I'll put links in the description. And so then we already loosened these when they were on the ground. So now that they're up, they're going to be easy to remove. I always just leave the lug nuts in a neat pile right beside where they were. And I just rotate the tire. I also inspect the tires. I use a little screwdriver to dig out any rocks that are stuck in the treads and things of that nature. I always inspect the tires for, like, if I see any damage to a sidewall, see any bubbling, that's a sure sign of a potential blowout that can kill you. So you definitely want to take note with your tires. Also, I torque these to 87 pound-feet of torque. That's in a range. Hyundai is very strange. Instead of telling you, they give you a range. So I usually pick something just a little above the middle or something of their range. So I torque these down to 87 foot-pounds. So we will loosen them, we will rotate them, we'll snug them up but not torque them down. Once we lower the vehicle down to the ground and the weight of the car is holding them down, then I torque them the rest of the way. But I get them all the way snug so that the wheels won't move side to side, you know, when I put the weight down of the car. So I won't video all that, but I've told you the rotation pattern and how to do all that. So I'm going to do that right now. Alright, we got the tires rotated, all the lug nuts are snugged but not torqued to their final torque. So now we're going to get the car down off of jack stands. So that's going to be reverse order of how we jacked it up. So we're going to start by jacking up the back just a little bit, enough to get the jack stand out of the way. Pull it out of the way and then slowly lower this part till the tires are fully on the ground. Then once that happens, we'll put our wheel chocks back in place behind the rear tires. because the car will be angled like that, so we don't want it to go backwards. It also does have the emergency brake on, but that's not enough. We want to use those wheel chocks, so we'll get rid of the whole back end, the floor jack and the jack stands, and then we'll come up to the front. We'll jack up the front just enough to get our jack stands out of the way. Then we'll use our floor jacks to lower the front tires all the way down. Get everything out of the way. Don't forget to get your wheel chocks out of the way before you try and back your car up. Once we do that, we will torque our lug nuts down to 87 pound-feet all the way around and fill our tire pressure up to 36 psi all the way around, and then our tire rotation will be done at that point. So I'm not going to put all that on the video, but that's how you do it. Okay, just in case you're not familiar with a torque wrench, once you set it to the proper foot-pounds, I'm using 87. When you get there, it's going to click, and that's when you stop. So that one's done. I just go every other bolt and count. There's 5. That's my last one. So that's how you torque your wheel lug nuts down. And then now we'll fill them all up to 36 psi and the tire rotation will be done. Alright, so everything is done. We changed automatic transmission fluid, we changed the oil, rotated the tires, and so anyway, our main battle was just the heat. And so anyway, everything went well. We ran the car, we checked the oil, make sure it was at the full level, and it is. And so anyway, we'll continue to monitor the oil, because like I said, this car does consume some oil, generally around 1/4 to 1/3 of a quart per 1,000 miles. So it does need checked. And so anyway, I'll be keeping an eye on that and keeping you informed on how that's going, how the Valvoline Restore and Protect oil is going. So I hope that's been helpful, and thank you for watching.